Welcome back, dear fans, to another exhilarating episode of TELESNOT. Can you believe it? We're officially at the halfway mark of the season. The excitement is palpable, and as always, the drama, action, and of course, unexpected chaos keep us all glued to the pitch. Round 4 has kicked off, and our dedicated coaches in Group A have wasted no time. 3 out of 4 matches were wrapped up before the New Year's fireworks even started. Now that's what I call a head start. So buckle up, folks, because it's time to dive into the action and see how our fearless teams fared on the field. Let's get rolling. The 4th round kicked off with an impromptu match between Isha's Revenge and the relentless TELESNOOBIES. How impromptu, you ask? Well, the Elven ladies barely had time to finish their post-snack commentary from the stands when the imps whisked them away to the pitch. A clever move by the chaotic little devils, who were so eager for another game that even Skitter Stab might not have realized he was playing back-to-back matches. From the very start, the TELESNOOBIES brought their signature brand of tough love. Their diminutive size didn't stop them from dishing out heavy hits, leaving the elves to learn firsthand what all the hype and bruises were about. In the second half, Isha's Revenge had a glimmer of hope to equalize. But with only 8 players to TELESNOOBIES 11, things looked grim. To make matters worse, Great Sylph Lelatum Faye refused to wake up from her post-lunch nap, murmuring, "Just 5 more minutes, please." Meanwhile, the imps gleefully rolled out their infamous road roller, putting even more pressure on their battered opponents. The elves tried to stretch the game across the field, but Inner Tooth of Tinky Winky, the meat grinder, armed with his miniature chainsaw, was relentless, hunting them down one by one and sending them off to the med tent. A last-ditch effort by Elaine to hurl the ball across the field ended in disaster, as she tripped and fell flat on her face, gifting the imps a clear path to seal the match at 2-0. The TELESNOOBIES continue their rampage through Group A, leaving nothing but chaos and bloodied rivals in their wake. As they march off the field, one devil's gleeful cry echoes through the stadium. "Who's next? Who's next?" Speaking of the previous victims of the TELESNOOBIES chaos, next up were GKS Shambani Supremes against BC Bone Cruncha. And compared to the imps' relentless brutality, this game was practically a vacation. The ogres, looking to tip the scales in their favor, used their inducement funds to bring in the legendary Mighty Zug. But even the Mighty Zug couldn't bring the much-needed stability to the Bone Cruncha squad. The team was a mess from start to finish. Take Andy, the Snotling launching cannon. His job was simple: fire Snotlings at the enemy, or better yet, launch them toward the end zone with the ball. However, Andy clearly overdid it on the explosive mixture. Every shot was either way too strong, launching Snotlings into orbit, or so unstable that it turned his ammo into casualties before takeoff. Understandably, the remaining Snotlings kept their distance from his disastrous cannon. Despite their struggles, the ogres managed to equalize at one point. But their celebration was short-lived. A nimble chimpanzee from the Supremes broke away from the fray, racing down the field to score a decisive touchdown that left the Bone Cruncha defense eating dust. While BC Bone Cruncha took the loss, their hopes for advancing out of the group stage aren't completely dashed just yet. That said, with the standings getting tighter than a Snotling squeezed by an ogre, every match counts from here on out. Misfortune continues to plague the judges of Dread, and this time, their bad luck came in the form of their opponents, the ever-glamorous Feywild Sparkles. The Spartans, it seems, already had their minds on the upcoming New Year's festivities. Honestly, you'd think they were completely drunk during this match. Meanwhile, the Sparkles played with absolute precision, dazzling the crowd with a flawless performance. The Spartans were utterly incapable of mounting a defense, leaving Aigen's team to obliterate them with a staggering 4-0 victory. After their triumph, the Sparkles headed off to plan their sparkling New Year's outfits. In a way, though, both teams walked away with something to celebrate. For the Sparkles, the reason is obvious: a dominant win that strengthens their position in the standings. But even the judges found their silver lining. They didn't suffer a single injury. With their squad finally back to full strength for the next match, the Spartans might just be able to turn the tide. It's high time, too, if they want to have any hope of advancing out of the group stage. Right after the New Year celebrations, when coaches and players finally thawed out, the last match of Group A's fourth round kicked off. The Dobkins, rejuvenated from their extended break, wasted no time launching into their opponents before the ball even touched the sand. It all looked promising until a goblin tripped over a dune. A classic start for the Dust Goblins. Meanwhile, one of the Lurkers' colossal crabs immediately made its presence known by brutally crushing an Ushabti in its powerful pincers. If that wasn't a statement, I don't know what is. The match was, well, interesting might be the best way to describe it. The Lurkers, giant crabs and scorpions, kept zoning out, abandoning their teammates at the worst possible moments to, apparently, meditate on the mysteries of life. Despite this, the Nauticans came close to taking the lead. Kalish, one of the Lurkers, decided to milk the clock and stalled by holding onto the ball for too long. Unfortunately for him, a fumble by Hammer, one of the infamous crabs, meant the right moment to score never arrived, and the referee called the end of the first half. In the second half, the Dobkins pushed forward with determination. However, they were caught off guard by a lightning-fast flank attack that stole the ball right from under their noses. Jamal, the bone giant, tried to intervene, but the nimble lizard darted past his massive hands. Having learned his lesson, Kaliak didn't stall this time and quickly secured a touchdown for the Lurkers. With time running out, the Dust Goblins launched a desperate offensive after the kickoff. Yet another misstep by Jamal halted their advance before it could gain momentum, leaving them without enough time to tie the game. Final score, 1-0 for the Deep Sea Lurkers. Sometimes the difference between victory and even bigger victory lies in knowing when not to stall. Just like the Grim Gemstones before them, the Iron Wolves took a brutally direct approach against the half of nothing. And just like in that earlier clash, the Elves' delicate side quickly became evident. Their attempts to channel hidden reserves of savagery were swiftly cut short by the referee, who penalized them for an overly zealous foul. With no other choice, the Elves reverted to their natural style of play. Elfie precision passing. The Kurgan Barbarians, however, weren't about to let a touchdown happen that easily. They charged forward with relentless fury, reducing the ball carrier to a bloody smear on the turf. Then, just to rub salt in the wound, they demonstrated their own take on Elven finesse by throwing the ball into the end zone right before the referee's whistle ended the half. For the second half, only half of nothing could return to the field. How poetic, right? With their numbers and morale cut down, the Elves simply couldn't stop the Iron Wolves' relentless march. The Kurgan stormed through to score again, clinching a 2-0 victory. In the end, half of nothing played true to their name. Let's hope they can pull together more than just half an effort next time. In an act as fiery as their team name, Witchy and We Know It, have decided to part ways with their coaching staff. They fired them, quite literally, by setting them ablaze. Yes, you read that right. The remainings that didn't turn into ashes were then used in a bloody ritual, leaving even Joseph Morunion and his intergalactic kobolds watching from the sidelines, visibly uneasy, perhaps worried they were next in line for a similar honor. However, after all this fiery activity, the witches were far too drained to step onto the pitch. Instead, they spent the match idly stroking the kobolds, whom they apparently found adorable little lizards. This second consecutive forfeit officially ends the Witches' run in the league, leaving them eliminated from playoff contention. Meanwhile, the remaining 7 teams in Group B are still vying for a spot in the top 4. And with that, let's move on to the next match. A strange illness seems to be sweeping through Group B, claiming yet another victim, this time the coach of Weatherton Inclements. Unable to field their team, the fiery elemental squad was forced to forfeit their match. Whispers in the crowd began to swirl. Does this illness have something to do with Lumbria? But the ever-charming coach of the murderous Kangaroos dismissed such rumors with a wide grin, happily accepting another victory by walkover. With that, let's move swiftly on to the final match of the round. After a long wait, Defiance faced off against the Earth Elementals of Grim Gemstones under the cover of late night skies. Two teams famed for their defense. How did this clash play out? Well, they mostly defended against each other's attempts to do anything. The first Border Prince's attempt to advance was swiftly blocked by the seamless coordination of Gemstone's multi-element defense. However, in the second push, Team Assassin Rahel dove into the cage and somehow managed to cut through air itself, dispatching one of the borrowed air elementals. The ball fumbled from Beryl's clumsy hands into those of Rupert, but his joy was short-lived as he was sent sprawling by a brutal uppercut. The first half devolved into scrappy brawls for control, with no side gaining a clear edge. The second half opened with the Defiance staring down a literal wall of Earth elementals. As the saying goes, every wall has its cracks, and Rupert proved the point by flooring Beryl, even cracking the golem's stony armor in the process, a feat worthy of applause. Yet, there was no time to celebrate. Diamond, one of the air elementals, slipped through the defenses as if carried by a breeze, dislodging the ball and sending the unfortunate Border Prince straight into the medic's tent. The game teetered on the brink as Rahel picked up the loose ball, leaped gracefully over the defenders, and bolted for the goal. But alas, the Gemstones managed to drag him down. The match sped up as both sides desperately searched for a breakthrough, but their defenses proved unshakable, and the game concluded in a hard-fought 0-0 draw. As the fans trickled out of the stands, one question lingered. Was the opponent's defense too strong? Or does their team need to rethink its offensive strategy? And that wraps up this episode. Remember, Nuffle hates us all equally. Don't take it personally. Stay warm, stay lucky, and until next time, this has been Henry Snotson. Cheers.